Welcome back to Home Gym Hacks and Reviews. Today I'll do an updated review for the Powertec Roller Smith Machine. I'm going to highlight every strength this machine has, but I'm also going to show how this Smith machine can be improved. Stay tuned. For the last 8 months after I sold a bunch of equipment, I thought my gym was missing one of my all-time favorite machines, a machine that gets a bad rap even though nearly every single pro uses it. In fact, I can go through my Battle for the Olympia series and show Jay Cutler, Lee Priest, Phil Heath, and many of the best to ever do it, taking advantage of the stability and safety the Smith machine offers. Over the last 15 years, I've had 6 Smith machines, a bigger, faster, stronger Smith, which insanely enough I found in the dumpster, and it only needed new hardware. It worked great. I also had the Iron Master IM2000, and this is my 4th Powertec Smith machine. I got my first Powertec Smith in 2012. It was the big gray monster that also served as a half rack. I added the lat tower option, and that piece stayed with me over the next 7 years through multiple moves. When I moved into this house, I got the model before this one, and I set it up in a spare bedroom. After that, I got my 3rd Powertec Smith WB RS19, which I reviewed nearly 3 years ago. It was the same model as this one, but I sold it along with the IM2000 about a year ago to make room for new equipment reviews. When I decided it was time to get another Smith machine, I knew I just wanted a Smith machine without any add-ons or extras, and it needed to have a very small footprint. I knew the Powertec Roller Smith would be the best option for the very limited amount of space I could dedicate. I had to shift my dumbbell racks down in order to make room for the Smith, but I think the dumbbell racks look pretty cool like this. I really like the uniformity I have in my garage gym with mostly Powertec machines, and I really like this black and white color scheme. Another reason I got this Smith for the 4th time is because I want to improve upon my original review. Although the information in my earlier videos is sound, the presentation could have been better. But I wasn't going to stop with just the Roller Smith. I also ordered my 2nd Powertec Basic Trainer for the Powertec gym, which is mostly empty at the moment. At the end of this video, I'll talk about the Basic Trainer a little more. This shipment made it across the country and to my garage door in 7 days. I wasn't home to accept the delivery, but my wife came to the rescue again and was able to sign for it. Custom companies consistently exceeds my expectations, and because of that, I always tip my drivers. It's always an awesome sight to see new equipment in the driveway. It never gets old. Powertec did a great job of securing all 5 boxes on the pallet with shrink wrap, and all of the boxes arrived in excellent condition. Whenever I have a box that exceeds the dimensions of the pallet, I always worry there will be some damage, but all was good. The Smith machine comes in 2 boxes, and both were excellently packed. It took about 30 minutes to get everything unboxed, and there really aren't too many total pieces and only 2 hardware packs. I want to point out the guide rods are nearly solid pipes and not some flimsy hollow tube. Here's my last Powertec Smith with the springs installed and the safeties all the way down. I could not get a full range of motion for some exercises like the decline press. In my original review for this machine, my biggest critique was the bar didn't travel low enough. Before ordering this one, I knew if I didn't install the springs and use smaller rubber stoppers, I could increase the depth the bar travels. The rubber stoppers on the storage posts can be swapped out for the ones that are part of the guide rod assembly. This easy modification takes the distance between the carriage and the safeties from 4 inches to 1 inch, ultimately allowing the bar to travel lower. If I was lifting 300 or 400 pounds and if I was slamming this bar down, I think it would be better to leave the springs on the machine because they serve as shock absorbers to help protect each carriage. But for the weights I'll be using, it should be fine. I understand why Powertec designed the machine this way. With this part of the frame here, it allows for plate storage and additional stability to the guide rod. But if it wasn't there, the guide rod would need to be longer, but it would allow for the bar to travel all the way down. Here's what the inside of each carriage looks like with the 4 bearing-driven nylon wheels. These look very similar to the wheels that are on the compact leg sled. I thought the machine could accept standard plates if the Olympic weight horns weren't installed, but my standard plates don't fit the bar. The trickiest part of this assembly, and I should have filmed this, is installing the bar. I secured the guide rods to the uprights with straps so they wouldn't move. Then I simply stood on a stool and lifted the bar with the carriages attached down the guide rods. This was an easy assembly that I completed solo in about an hour, but again, this is my 4th Powertec Smith. A second set of hands would have cut that time in half, and it would have made installing the bar a little bit safer and easier. I also ordered the bench connector, which provides added stability to the Smith, and it ensures the bench is always centered. The machine also comes with collars. Just don't let anyone see you using collars on a Smith machine. Once the Smith was assembled, it was time to jazz it up. I had the 4/10 of an inch and 1 inch number stickers laying around. I have the smaller stickers on the Levergym and the FID bench. and the 1-inch stickers worked perfectly to mark the bar and safety settings on the Smith machine. Now I can quickly find the correct position for each exercise by looking at the notes in my logbook. Secondly, I sprayed the guide rods with 3M dry silicone spray to make an already smooth machine even smoother. Lastly, I ordered another set of 9-inch Olympic sleeve adapters from Titan. I could have gotten a less expensive set from Amazon, but I knew what to expect with these, and the original set I put on the Levergym is still going strong 4 years later. I just don't like standard plate posts. In the US, standard posts are usually found on lower end equipment, which Powertec is not. Also, without the adapters, the post would have gotten all torn up and the plates wobble around. Plus, I just don't think Olympic plates look good on a standard post, an odd pet peeve of mine. Here is another reason I went with the Powertec Roller Smith over all of the other options, because I needed the perfect place to store this attachment organizer, and after taking some measurements, I knew it would fit. The wheels that I put on the attachment organizer continue to prove to be invaluable. In my current gym layout, I simply move the Powertec FID bench back and forth between the Levergym, Streamline Functional Trainer, and the Smith machine. I love how the utility bench connector helps me get the FID bench centered every time, and now with the bench connected, the Smith machine has a lot of additional stability, with an additional 90 pounds for the bench and 175 pounds for me. With the sliding bench feature, I can get the exact position I need in relation to the bar. Powertec does such a great job of having their pieces work in conjunction with one another. I think the weight on this machine feels very close to an Olympic bar. For example, a 185 or 225 pound flat press feels as difficult as the traditional bench press. Also, when comparing exercises on the Roller Smith to the Levergym or Multipress, the lever systems are about 20% easier. After my first chest workout using the Smith, the pec pump was real. If only I could go around looking this swole 24/7. One of the advantages the Smith machine has over the Levergym, Multipress, and Functional Trainer is that I can start from the top position. If I get in trouble, I can hook the bar or drop it on the safeties. This machine is incredibly compact. It's about 3.5 feet by 4.5 feet and 7 feet tall. The bar is 7 feet long. I really like that this is a true 45-pound bar, unlike other Smith machines. I also like the 3.5-inch circumference of this bar. Thicker bars seem to aggravate my joints, more specifically my thumb, which I've talked about before. The knurling is perfectly balanced. It's definitely not aggressive, but not passive either. For me, it has a great feel, which offers just the right amount of friction. I also really appreciate how smoothly and easily the plates slide on and off these 11-inch stainless steel weight horns. They are a major step up from the bolt-on plastic Olympic sleeve adapters. Now, one of the coolest features for the Smith machine is bar storage. I didn't realize this until months after owning the Smith before this, but the bar hooks in the upper crossbar to almost entirely get the bar out of the way. At 5'9", there's enough clearance for me to walk around under the bar and then some. There are 12 lockout points, which is on the lower side when compared to other Smith machines, but that's largely because this bar doesn't travel lower. I like that each safety is covered in a material that prevents metal on metal, unlike some other Smith machines I've seen and used. Also, the safeties are about 4 inches away from one another. If this hook was a little smaller, another lockout point or two could be added, but all of the exercises I've tried line up just fine for me. I will point out I can make this bar shift back and forth about 1/4 inch, but the bar doesn't do this under normal circumstances. Also, I am intentionally lifting one side higher than the other, but this bar doesn't have the wobble that I've seen with some of the other budget-friendly Smith machines. With all that said, this bar can be loaded with a couple 45s on one side and the opposite side of the bar won't pop up. Another indicator this Smith is a few steps above some of the budget-friendly Smith machines I've recently seen reviewed. In my original review for this machine, I mentioned how I liked my original Powertec Smith better than the newer models, and that's largely because this bar doesn't travel as low. If you are getting this Smith for standing bent over rows, deadlifts, rack deads, or hip thrusts, you're going to be disappointed. Even when removing the springs and using smaller rubber stoppers, the bar won't travel low enough for those exercises. In fact, the lowest I can get this bar is 22 inches off the ground. I could stand on plyo boxes or a makeshift platform and perform rows and deadlifts, but that's not ideal. So it's a very good thing I mainly got this Smith for pressing exercises. In future editions of this machine, Powertec needs to return to their original design to increase the versatility of their Smith. I've said I prefer vertical guide rods on Smith machines, but these guide rods only have a 5-degree bar angle, and for most exercises, that slight angle really isn't noticeable. Manufacturers suggest slightly angled guide rods match the natural movement for pressing and squatting. Also, angled guide rods add additional versatility to a Smith machine. For example, while facing out and squatting, I can get more of a quad bias squat, and when facing in, I can get more glute involvement in the squat. Furthermore, for some exercises, which I'll highlight in a second, I actually prefer an angled guide rod. The more I'm using this machine this time around, the more the angled guide rods are growing on me. Ultimately, it comes down to a matter of preference, and I don't think one option is necessarily better than the other. This crossplate adds additional stability to the machine, especially for exercises like squats when the bench is not attached. The machine weighs just over 200 pounds, it's 12 gauge steel, and it has a max weight capacity of 450 pounds on the lower end when compared to other Smith machines, but for pressing, that's more than enough for most people. I saw a review for this machine from someone in another country, and he said this machine wobbled too much. Well, even in my sloped garage and trying to force it to wobble, it really doesn't. So that leads me to believe that he didn't tighten all his bolts down. This machine is fantastic for flat press and incline press. It's also easy to add a reverse band to give me a little assistance in the bottom of the movement where I'm weakest. Or with a couple of dumbbells, I can add bands to give me additional resistance at the top of the movement where I'm strongest. I have noticed when the bench is slid all the way back, the front feet have a tendency to pop up if I'm trying to add a lot of leg drive. This is easily fixed with a leg extension attachment and a 45-pound plate.
If I didn't slide the bench all the way back, and if I didn't install the connector and just move the bench back further into the Smith machine, this wouldn't happen.
I'll also note a true shoulder press with the bench connected isn't ideal because even with the bench slid all the way back as far as it can go, I can't do a proper overhead press. However, if I simply move the bench just outside of the Smith machine, I can get a great overhead press. Close grip tricep presses are fantastic. I place my hands just inside of the knurling, and I like to do this exercise with a very slight incline on the bench. A JM press is another solid exercise on the Smith. A little weight goes a long way. One arm shoulder presses with the bar traveling to the center line of my body is an exercise I prefer with an angled guide rod. And the upright row is another exercise where I think angled guide rods are better. If you like standing shoulder presses, it won't work unless you're about 5'7" or shorter. Here are a couple unique leg exercises that can be performed on the Smith machine. A one-leg step up using a 12-inch plyo box. I just need to be aware of the crossbar so I don't bang my head. Next, a one-leg squat using a single-leg squat roller. I like this exercise because I don't need to load my spine as heavy. Here is one I got from Paul Carter, the Bazooka Bulgarian. I like the angled bar path for this exercise. Here is another one I got from Paul Carter, the bent leg glute raise. The range of motion is short, but this exercise is extremely tough and worth having in the rotation. Standing calf raises with a calf block are a great alternative to a standalone calf machine. Similarly, seated calf raises are another solid option on the Smith and good enough to keep from buying a standalone seated calf raise machine. I also really like the Smith machine for shrugs. I hadn't done this exercise since my last Smith, and my traps were sore for a couple of days after bringing this exercise back into the rotation. Although this Smith machine isn't great for rows and deadlifts, it can be used for a Dante Trudell classic exercise, the rack chin. And with the bar on the top safety, it is nearly 6 feet high, so it will work for bent leg pull-ups. I've seen a couple recent reviews for a budget-friendly Smith machine, and that bar looks incredibly wobbly, and it doesn't always lock into the holes of the frame. While it is quite a bit less expensive than this one, I would rather just spend the $1,300 when this is on sale or $1,499 at its original price and get something that I know is battle tested. This Smith machine has been around for over a decade, and I have yet to hear of any issues. You may be wondering how this compares to the Ironmaster IM2000, which I reviewed a while back and I spoke very highly of. At the moment, the Powertec is about $500 less expensive, and I like the Powertec bar and footprint better. The IM2000 has quite a few more lockout points, a bar that travels vertically and lower, and a lot of add-ons, but in my present layout, the IM2000 wouldn't fit, and I don't want any of those extras. I just want a Smith machine. I also prefer how the Powertec's bar engages and disengages, and I can see the lockout point. On the Ironmaster, that was done blindly. I had a couple of companies reach out and offer to send me one of the all-in-one functional trainer rack Smith machine combo machines in exchange for a review. I ultimately declined because I just don't want one of those big bulky machines in this garage, and it's rare that any feature on one of those all-in-one machines will be better than a dedicated machine. In the end, is this a perfect Smith machine? No. However, it has quite a few features that separate it from other Smith machines on the market. The 45-pound bar with stainless steel weight horns that can store away is better than most. The Smith has one of the most compact designs among any Smith machine. There is also the option to add a lat machine with a 500-pound weight capacity that can be plate loaded or accept a plate stack add-on. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I also ordered the Powertec Basic Trainer for the second time. This is as good as the ones I used during my days of training in commercial gyms. I mainly got this for the knee raise feature because the hanging ab straps were starting to irritate my shoulder, and I like having the back pad for stability. For anyone who gets this, I recommend assembling the pull-up bar while the VKR is laid down. I have an older, full review for this if you want to see it in action. I am a Powertec affiliate along with some other companies. If any of my videos have been helpful, please consider using one of my affiliate links at no additional cost to you. That link can be found in my YouTube bio about section, and I might tag it here in the description. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you will subscribe to my channel if you are not. More reviews are coming soon. Take care, everyone.